Jungle.
Hello, listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is Thursday, October 12th, 2017. I am your co-host, Bobby Hester, and as always, I am joined by my host, Enzo Quesada.
Hey, how's it going?
So this is the first time that we have had these positions switched because this episode, we're going to be talking about sports in the Trump era. Whereas I myself am a very big sports fan. I know you and some of the other people we know aren't the biggest sports fans,
Not so much, but to my credit, I've been getting more into it with the NFL season this year.
And a lot of that has to do with the things that we're going to talk about in this episode. So we've been wanting to do this episode actually for a while, before the whole NFL kneeling controversy and Trump, making his statements on it. But first things first, what we wanted to talk about before we get into that is just how crazy the sports world has been since the rise of Donald Trump. Now, this goes back to about the summer of 2015, but when things really picked up was in 2016. So that's where we're going to backdate first. And the first thing that we want to say in terms of how the sports world went crazy was the 2016 World Series, the Chicago Cubs versus the Cleveland Indians. Now, for those of you who don't know the full background, those were the two teams that had the longest droughts in terms of championship victories. The Chicago Cubs, the last time they had won a World Series was in 1908. Okay, 108 years. The Cleveland Indians, the last time they won a World Series was 1947. So to have both of those teams coming to the World Series at the same time was pretty magical for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, the Chicago Cubs went on to win in Game 7, in extra innings in fact, against the Indians, to win their first championship in 108 years. Now, for people living in Chicago, people went in their entire lifetimes without seeing the Cubs win another championship. I mean, my dad is from Chicago. He's been a Cubs fan his entire life. He was born in 1952. Okay? So even for him, not even living in Chicago anymore was a very emotional experience. Now, this, like I said, it has to do with the whole just rise of Donald Trump throwing everything out of whack. And it does seem like a lot of reality has been thrown out of whack ever since Trump started his rise to power over the last couple of years.
Yeah, the world is just so different in so many ways, and it's crazy you can even see like the abnormalities influencing sports. Really, it's just coincidental, but it feels that way, I guess.
It's all
until this year, at least.
It is all completely coincidental, and that's exactly why we're talking about it. So the next thing up that we have is the 2016 MLS Cup, Major League Soccer. Now, soccer is not exactly the biggest, most popular sport in the United States, but their championship game that they had, which was the Seattle Sounders versus Toronto FC, I went ahead and watched it because I have a lot of family that lives up in Seattle. I don't really follow any MLS teams except for the Seattle Sounders. I've had a Seattle Sounders sticker on my car for about 2 years now. So the fact that they had a pretty good season last year and then ended up going to the championship, I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. For once, a team of mine has made it. So the Seattle Sounders faced Toronto FC in Toronto during their championship game there, and it ended in a 0-0 tie after the end of regulation, and then in the overtime period ended again 0-0 tie. It went to penalty kicks, and Seattle Sounders ended up winning their very first MLS Cup because of penalty kicks, and they won by one kick.
They've never had one before.
They've been kind of, I think...
Because since they entered the league, they've always been one of the best teams.
They have, and they've always been seen by the league as, like, the team that is always being pretty good, but never was able to make it all the way.
Their supporters are really enthusiastic. Like, they have the best support in the MLS. I kind of know soccer. I mean, I like playing Football Manager, a soccer PC game, and my dad's super into soccer. So, like, I do understand, like, the support for Seattle is crazy, and I guess it's good that they have them. I just thought they would have had one sooner, but I don't follow it the best.
Yeah, and I don't really follow soccer very much, or football, if you want to use the more correct term for that, even though it is MLS, Major League Soccer. But that being said, I don't really follow it until the playoffs start around, and so the only reason I even paid attention was because the Sounders were in it. And I guess I can see them as my team simply because they're the only team that I even remotely follow at all.
The format for MLS soccer is so different than like the rest of the world too. It's kind of strange. Like we still have playoffs like it's, football, and like we don't have teams that get relegated or promoted. Like we keep the same number. I guess we just do different things with soccer, but it's not a big deal in this country.
I guess, but you know what? That's okay, because we're moving on to the next sport. Now, I'm combining both 2016 and 2017 here, because we are talking about the Stanley Cup Finals, hockey. The Pittsburgh Penguins. Keep in mind Pittsburgh, a city in Pennsylvania, a swing state that went to Trump, that hardly anybody expected was going to go to Trump. Now, Pittsburgh, the fans there, that area, pretty blue, but they have a lot of like white collar fans of their team. The Pittsburgh area is very, very white collar, blue collar. And those are the type of people, those middle class, blue collar type people, rural areas, that really swung to Trump. And so this Pittsburgh Penguins fans, by and large, you could say, are pretty much Trump supporters. But that being said, they became the first team, the Pittsburgh Penguins that is, they became the first team in over 20 years to win back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. So that's probably the weakest of all the major sports that we're listing here in terms of their championships and how that was special because of the rise of Trump, or at least, like we said, the coincidence of the rise of Trump. So, yeah, they became the first team to win back-to-back, so they're potentially going to go for a three-peat. I know that as of the time that we're recording this, the hockey season has just begun last week, so every team's only played a couple of games, so we'll see where they go. I haven't even checked the standings. I don't know how they're doing. It just started. Doesn't really matter at this point.
I wanted to mention something about soccer before we move forward.
Yeah, go right ahead.
As of this week, because we saw the qualifiers for the World Cup, my dad was watching. I watched some of them as well. The United States will not be going to the 2018 World Cup, and they've qualified for every single one since, I believe, 1990.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I was looking forward to, seeing Trump tweet about our U.S. soccer team, but they're not even going to make it, so it's weird. Yeah, number 1 was Mexico, 2 was Costa Rica. I forgot who qualified 3rd. I think it was Panama. Panama came in 3rd. Honduras is in 4th. They're playing against Australia. To see the winner of that in 2-series leg goes to the World Cup.
Okay.
And the United States came in 5th. And usually, we qualify, so it's kind of bad.
Well, I guess you can blame Trump for that one if you're one of those #NeverTrumpers out there. So you got your victory. Now, the next sport that we wanted to go to, and this one kind of has another 2-year type thing to it, but we're going to cover each year individually this time. So the 2016 NBA Finals. If anyone remembers back to last year, the Golden State Warriors became the very first team to ever blow a 3-1 lead out of a 7-game series in the NBA Finals. The Cleveland Cavaliers came back from a 3-1 deficit, won the final 3 games to win their first championship ever. Now, Cleveland, again, remember, city in Ohio, swing state, went to Trump. Cleveland was also the city that hosted the RNC last in the summer of 2016, where they officially nominated Trump to be the Republican nominee for president.
I do remember that.
Yeah, we definitely remember that. And so that was a city that had just gotten off of, they'd never won a championship, Cleveland had. In fact, the city itself, the last time any team from that city had won a championship, I believe, was the 1947 Cleveland Indians. So I might be slightly mistaken, but that time frame is pretty much correct there. So you're talking not only has a team never won a championship, the entire city itself hadn't seen a championship in almost 60 years, over 60 years, almost 70 years at that point. So a very, very long deficit. So when Cleveland won, that entire city went wild. And then just a couple of months later, not even a couple months later, the next month, the RNC comes to town and hosts their convention in the very same stadium there at Quicken Loans Arena, where the Cleveland Cavaliers play their home games at. So that's pretty interesting there. Now, the reason why this is a 2-year thing is because of what happened this summer. In the 2017 NBA Finals, again, the Golden State Warriors played the Cleveland Cavaliers for the 3rd year in a row, and the Golden State Warriors won in 5 games. Now, the reason why that is significant here is because of a more recent development that happened a couple of years ago, where The Golden State Warriors...
A couple of years ago?
No, that's a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say week?
Yeah, you said a couple of years ago.
A couple of weeks ago. Definitely not years. Where the Golden State Warriors... Now, I should just backtrack before I say this. Every championship team of every major sport, even college sports championship teams, get invited to the White House. That's a tradition that's gone on for decades. Decades. Every team. Basketball, doesn't matter. Football, baseball, soccer, college football, college basketball. Your team wins, you go to the White House. No matter who's president, no matter who your team is. That's been tradition. Every president's done that. Every team has done that. But the Golden State Warriors decided to want to protest Trump. They didn't want to go. They had a team meeting talking about whether or not they actually wanted to go to the White House. And Stephen Curry, the main star from the Golden State Warriors, was very vocally adamant about the fact that he did not want to go. He didn't support Trump. He wanted to boycott this. Never Trump. Don't support this guy. So Trump, in all of his infinite wisdom, decided to go onto Twitter and say, fine, you don't want to come to White House? I'm revoking the invitation for your team to come here. And so that settled that. And then, of course, people started to blame Trump that he was overreacting. But you know what? I understand where he's coming from. Saying, look, if you're not going to respect the office that I am currently residing in, then you're not going to get the privileges that are awarded to championship teams. And the thing is, they're the only team that has protested it. The Pittsburgh Penguins, as I said earlier this year, they won the 2017 Stanley Cup Finals. They went to the White House, no problem. Earlier this year, when I believe it was the Clemson Tigers won the college football championship, they didn't protest. They went to the White House. And even then, so all the teams that at least have had championships in the New England Patriots. We're about to get to them in a second. When they won this year, they went to the White House. Now, Tom Brady did not go, even though Tom Brady does support Trump, as many people have found out. Now, back in 2015, when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, he didn't go to the White House then either. So even though Tom Brady does support Trump, he decided to sit out both of those. So at least he's being consistent is all I have to say. I guess
when you win so many Super Bowls, it doesn't matter as much.
At that point, that is his 5th Super Bowl. He's already been there 3 times. They're all under Bush. Think about that. And so, yeah, if he says, I'm done with, let the other guys go. I've been there enough. I don't really care. You can complain, he's being biased against Obama, but at the same time, he supports Trump, so he wants to sit that out. That's different. It's one thing for a single player to say, I'm not going to go because I've won enough, to have an entire team like the Warriors openly discussing it as a team. So,
wasn't there a couple guys at the Patriots that didn't go to the Trump?
There were a few players, but it was only 2 or 3. So by and large, the rest of the team and the rest of the coaching staff and all of them, they all went. They didn't have any troubles with it.
Okay.
So, and that actually does segue into the very next championship that we are going to talk about, which was the Super Bowl that was held earlier this year. Now, you have to remember, Super Bowls for the NFL, even though they are held in whatever the year it is, they technically count as the year before. So even though this was held in February of 2017, it was the 2016 season Super Bowl. So if you look at the records, it counts as 2016. So if you look back at all the different 2016 championships that we've listed, technically speaking, this one would count as them. Now, for those of you who watched the Super Bowl, and a lot of people did, because it was one of the highest rated ever.
I watched it.
I did too. In fact, I watched it at the same person's house that I spent election night at.
Oh.
So that was pretty darn interesting. But if you remember back, the Atlanta Falcons, with quarterback Matt Ryan, who won the MVP that year, had a 28-3 halftime lead. At that point, the biggest blown lead ever in Super Bowl history was like 10 or 12 points.
Yeah.
Okay, they're up by 25 at halftime. And a lot of people said, this game's over.
I was one of those people because I'm not, hugely into sports. So I was just like, I'll do something else. I wanted the Patriots to win. But I saw what happened at the end there.
So for those of you who remember back or didn't know, obviously we said the Patriots won. They were down 28-3 at halftime, and the Patriots went on and tied it 28-28 at the end of regulation. First Super Bowl ever, 51st Super Bowl, first Super Bowl ever in 51 years to go into overtime. And then the Patriots scored a touchdown, and they won. And it was seen as biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, one of the most epic championship comebacks of any sport of all time. It was amazing to watch. Now, people had that 99% chance of the Falcons winning that game at halftime, and yet the Patriots were the team that came back and won that, which is very similar to what a lot of modelists had in the 2016 election. Especially Huffington Post gave Hillary Clinton a 98% chance of winning that thing.
I think the New York Times did a thing that was similar to that.
Well, New York Times, in terms of the election, they did their own things, but when it came to actually election night, they had a little bar chart thing that was going back and forth.
The probability of who would win.
As votes came in for each state, they had the probability of each person. You could click on the state. As much as I don't like the New York Times for being biased and fake news a lot, whatever calculation system that they have running on their website on election night is second to none. It is the best thing that is out there, and I absolutely love it. And I cannot give them any negative anything for that system that they use. So I have to say it's amazing. But that being said, we just talked about football. And the biggest story in terms of the sports world that's been going on for the last I'd say for the last month or so. Now, the whole...
Since the Luther Strange rally.
The whole kneeling controversy of the NFL dates back to last year when Colin Kaepernick decided to start doing that. He was the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers at that point. But it was only a couple of players who would do it last year, whereas this year, especially after, like you just said, when Donald Trump held a rally for Luther Strange in Alabama, and he just made the off-the-cuff remark saying, wouldn't it be amazing if one of those football players decided to kneel and the owner of the team was said, get that son of a bitch off the field, get him out, and suspended him or forced him not to play, and that pissed off a lot of NFL players.
Yeah. And I was watching that rally live because, I was very in tune wanting to see the result of the Strange Moore race. And it's funny, the biggest thing to come from that rally now is that comment. And it was just something he did on the fly. He didn't go there to talk about football at all. But it's the most important thing that came out of that rally because, Luther Strange lost.
Precisely. And like we said, that set the NFL ablaze. If you watched, people complain that ESPN and other sports stations are starting to get political. That was before this, okay? That was the only thing anyone was talking about that entire week in terms of the sports world. So that's what happened there. And, people started calling for an NFL boycott. That is, people who were on Trump's side of the issue, believing that players should be standing for the national anthem. They should have their hands over their hearts. They shouldn't be kneeling at all because they see it as disrespectful. Now, a lot of people, especially on the left, are like, it's their right to protest. You're absolutely right. They have a right to protest. The question is, should they be doing it on company time? Because they are at work. That is their job.
Yes.
And that is up to the owners to decide. If you want to protest, fine, you can do that. But you're still at work. You still have a job. And your owner of your team can decide whether or not they want to suspend you or sit you for a game or not start you. That's up to that owner's decision. And whether or not the people who were kneeling are completely justified in their actions doesn't matter. Because what happens is the perception of the people and the NFL fans who are seeing it. And the vast overwhelming majority of those people, there was a poll that was done. Breitbart is the one who wrote the article, but they were not the one who did the poll. In fact, this was a poll that was done, as I bring this up here, it was a poll that was done by the Remington Research Group, did a poll. They asked the question. They said, last week Donald Trump said NFL players should stand and be respectful during the national anthem. Do you think NFL players should stand and be respectful during the national anthem? 64% of respondents said yes, whereas only 25% no, 11% said unsure. And they also asked another question saying, does this make you more likely or less likely to watch your favorite team's games in the future? 50% said less likely.
Man.
Only 30% said more likely. 20% said no difference. And that continues on for, and if you're wondering about, okay, well, what if they were just polling people who were Trump supporters? Well, they also asked in the exact same poll, they asked the question, what is your opinion of Donald Trump? Favorable, 46%, unfavorable, 47%, no opinion, 7%.
So that weeds that out.
So in terms of that favorability rating, that's about in line what we're seeing with national favorability, popularity, Trump supporter polls as it is right now in terms of nationwide. So that's pretty darn accurate if I had to say it.
So, knowing those numbers there, what percentage of Democrats do you think are against this kneeling?
Well, they actually do go down onto that, I believe. Actually, they don't go down onto that there. But what they do have is a slightly partisan breakdown here. Here it is. They actually do. They said Republicans and nonpartisans have been cutting back on watching football at a higher rate than Democrats, as 66% of Republicans say they have watched less football this year compared to 33% of Democrats. Among nonpartisans, 55%, which means independents, 55% reported they have watched less football this year compared to the past. So yeah, even though this is only giving the one number, 33% of Democrats say that they have watched less football compared to 66% of Republicans.
Okay, because you said, what was the number of people that are against it in general, percentage?
Up here that said 25% believe that players should stand for the national anthem.
And, it's only half of those people surveyed support Trump. The other half is against. So you pretty much have half of Democrats still want them to be standing.
Precisely. It's almost all Republicans and about half of Democrats.
Yeah.
Whereas what we are hearing, from the people who are especially on Twitter and social media supporting this, a lot of it is the African American community. They're the ones who are mostly in support of the players protesting the national anthem.
Yeah.
And a lot of that does stem from beliefs of police brutality, racism, reasons like that, which is why Colin Kaepernick decided to start kneeling, which then blew up into the situation we have today. And a lot of them believe the same things that he does. And they support his right to protest and his protest itself. And so, if you look at those numbers, as I said before, look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, okay? Pittsburgh is a city that is almost entirely white. There's a lot of, black people that live in that area, but the surrounding area is seen as a lot of white working class type people. Now, the reason I bring that up in specific is because if you remember, the week after Trump made his comments at the Luther Strange rally, that's when people really wanted to see, okay, how is the NFL going to react to this? Now, if you remember, the Pittsburgh Steelers, as a team, decided to stay in the tunnel. They didn't even go out for the national anthem, except for one player, and his name was it was
Charlie Villanueva?
Alejandro Villanueva. It was Alejandro Villanueva, and he was the only player. Now, he'd been in the military, okay, so he knew what he was doing, and he decided to come out. He was the only player from their team to come out and stand for the national anthem. The rest of the team didn't even come out. Even Ben Roethlisberger, their quarterback, who is beloved by that city, stayed in the tunnel there. That's the thing, though. Alejandro Villanueva's jersey became the highest-selling jersey on every single jersey-selling website. Every single website that sells NFL gear. It became the highest-selling jersey within 24 hours and stayed like that for a week. Okay? That would never have happened if he would have stayed in there.
You look at it at the flip side, the year before, Kaepernick jerseys were selling crazy.
They were.
Because, people want to signal on the other side, and a lot of people buying those jerseys weren't even people that watched football necessarily.
Right, they were just people that supported him and said, I'm gonna buy his jersey just to... Because if you walk around and you see someone wearing a Colin Kaepernick jersey, you know why they're wearing it.
It's a political statement to wear his jersey.
It's like wearing a MAGA hat out in public. And the same thing is kind of now. If you're not actually in the Pittsburgh Steelers, the greater Pittsburgh area, or you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan living around there, if you're seen wearing an Alejandro Villanueva jersey, that's a political statement as well.
Yeah.
People, as people say, the old saying goes, money talks and BS walks. Money talks. And if you want to protest people, you hit them in their wallets. And especially with people buying Alejandro Villanueva jerseys, becoming the fastest and the highest selling jersey within 24 hours for an entire week shows that people want to support players who are standing for the national anthem when everybody else isn't. They're putting their money where their mouth is in doing so. Now, I haven't checked the jersey sales recently. That was a couple of weeks ago, and I believe it's come back down since then. It's sort of kind of gotten a little bit back to normal the way it was. But, that kind of goes back to another debate that a lot of people had was, is the reason why NFL ratings, which we're going to get to in a minute, is that really because of Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling? Now, when the ratings were down in 2016, the NFL tried to blame it on everything but the NFL.
They tried to blame it on the presidential election.
They said, it's the election, but there's no way. There's no data.
The big debates that were on Monday Night Football, those obviously stole ratings from, Monday Night Football. But that's not going to affect Sunday
That doesn't affect Sunday night, or Thursday night.
Yeah.
Like we said, there was only one game that was interrupted by presidential debates, and that was the second presidential debate, which happened, the weekend after Pussygate.
Yeah, that was Pussy Grab debate.
And a lot of people are trying to compare this season's NFL numbers to last season's, which is a pretty fair metric, season to season. But they were talking about how, I believe it was week 3, which just recently was like a couple of weeks ago, the Monday Night Football game, they said that one was up compared to last year. That was because of that debate.
That was the night. Cowboys game, wasn't it?
It was the Cowboys game on Monday night, and it was, a year back from that presidential debate.
That was Cowboys, Arizona. We watched that.
Yeah.
But, you look at that Sunday, numbers were way down. The only thing that brought it up was that Monday night.
And I'm going to get to the actual numbers here in a minute. But, there was polls that were done about whether or not it truly was Colin Kaepernick and the protesters that brought ratings down last year. And CBS Sports actually published a thing in a research poll where they did a poll, and the number one issue by fans, of the fans that watch less football, that is, the number one issue was players protesting the national anthem. That was the number one issue. And so you have definitive proof by CBS, of all people, publishing a poll showing, fans are saying the reason they're watching less football is because of these national anthem protests. And so that is pretty much where we're at right now with the ratings game. Now, ratings, they say, are down about 8 to 11% from last year. And that's actually pretty true, and that's been consistent this whole season. The week after Trump made his comment, I think ratings were down 8% from the week before. The next week, they were down about 5%, and last week, they were down 3%. So they've been dropping every single week ever since then. Now, they're dropping at a slower rate to the point where they might actually pick back up here this week or next week, depending on how things go. I don't know. The Cowboys are in a bye week this week. So with people not watching the Cowboys, who knows what they'll be watching at other times. The Cowboys are America's team. They're one of the most popular, if not the most popular team out there. So the Cowboys games do have a big effect on ratings. As we said, they were the Monday night game. When they're the Sunday night game, those tend to be higher rated than other games.
They usually put the Cowboys in the late game.
Yeah. So the reason that this whole rating system also kind of has to do with it is because of the fact that the NFL is just losing money. Okay? It's not that necessarily that they are, quote-unquote, losing money, but they are bringing in a lot less money than they used to be bringing in. In fact, there was one thing that was done. They said that the NFL was expected to, if the ratings don't turn around, bring in $200 million less in revenue this year than the year before. Now, $200 million, that's not exactly chump change, all right? That is a significant amount of money. And that is all because of the fact that people are just not watching as much.
Well, yeah, you earlier said, you vote with your dollar, and people express that also in jerseys, but also they're not contributing to the NFL in general.
And it's not only that, it's advertisers. Yeah. Okay? When people don't watch games, those advertisers just lost out on market share. And the NFL brings in about $2.5 billion a year in advertiser and just in general revenue, whether that be advertisements, ticket sales, jersey sales, that sort of stuff. So $200 million out of $2.5 billion, I guarantee you one thing. That's how much money they're bringing in. They're spending a hell of a lot of that money as well. That's not profit. That is just revenue. So $200 million less in revenue, that's make it or break it territory at that point.
Which, here's this for a hypothetical. These things continue. People continue to stop watching football. These protests continue, and more people are turning off. What happens with the Super Bowl? Okay, are less people going to watch that? Because the big thing about that is the ads, you know?
Right.
There's people that watch the Super Bowl only for ads. Are they even going to bother to really buy ad space this year?
Well, they will.
They will, but is it really going to be a payoff to do so? Because those are the most expensive ads you can buy.
I think that, and this is me personally, my belief, I think that the ratings will start to come a little bit back up, but they'll never reach the level that they were. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have a week here that's like plus 1%.
Because I don't know if I'm jumping ahead on any of this. Like, they've done recent polling on favorability to, like, sports.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that here right now. I can actually bring that exact story up right here, so I have it. Yeah, they've asked people, you know, when they do polls about asking people what's their favorite sport, the NFL always polls at the top. It's the most popular sport in America.
It's America's game.
As of right now, only 42% of men aged from 34 to 54. Now, that's like your prime sports watcher demographic, is that demographic right there. Only 42% of men in that age group had a favorable opinion of the NFL during September, which is a 31-point decrease from the 73% who responded to the poll in August.
Man.
It dropped 31% among your prime demographic. That is entirely because of the NFL protests. Okay? Now, Trump won the male vote. Everyone knows that. And that 34 to 54 demographic there of
predominantly his voters.
Working class men who are NFL fans, overwhelmingly Donald Trump supporters by a fantastic margin. We don't have the exact numbers, but it's going to be like 75 to 25. It's going to be blowing Hillary Clinton out of the water type territory in terms of Trump support versus not Trump support at that point. But yeah, this was a poll that was done by the Winston Group, and they also said that among males, NFL favorables fell 23%, going from 68% to 45%. And this was a separate poll that they were doing there. That was just among men in general. And the first category I was talking about was their exact demographic there, the 34 to 54 range. But among this group, talking about the 34 to 54-year-old males, the NFL has a surprising negative image as it went from plus 54 in August to minus 5 in September. So if you're talking about, not just favorability, but net favorability, plus 54 to minus 5. When you're a company and you're in the NFL is a company,
terrible numbers.
When you see that happen in a month, you know the writing's on the wall, and you know things have to change fast.
Which, like you brought up that demographic of 35 to 55?
34 to 54.
34 to 54. That's going to be your audience that's going to buy the tickets the most. And, I've been watching how tickets have been going, like, in Los Angeles. No one's going to those Chargers games. No one's going to those Rams games. You're seeing empty seats in the 49ers games. You're seeing all over the league. They're not selling out stadiums, and this is like unheard of for most places.
And not only that, but as diverse as this country is, and NFL teams are in big cities. Big cities are pretty much the only thing Democrats have left anymore. The only people who live in big cities pretty much are Democrats at this point. If you're in the suburbs or you're in a rural area, there's a police car going outside, so I'll let that go by real quick. Hopefully that didn't get caught in this podcast, but that's okay. So anyways, the point that I was trying to make there was, even though Republicans, and I use that term very generally, I could say more conservatives would probably be the better term, are the type of people who are watching these games and going to these games, no matter what big city you're in. Maybe Baltimore and San Francisco, because those tend to be extremely, extremely blue areas. But even places like Massachusetts, okay, where the New England Patriots play in Foxborough.
Very blue state.
Very blue state. But even then, and what I'm about to say goes for every single stadium, when the players kneeled the week after Trump and the week after that, which is, the second week of people actually paying attention to this, the boos that you heard from the fans when those players started to kneel during the national anthem was deafening. Okay? Even in a blue state, one of the bluest of the blue in Massachusetts, the fans there booed the players for kneeling for the national anthem. And they got that on every TV. Every TV that was broadcasting those games, you could hear it start to the point where even the announcers were like, oh, you hear a few people out there starting to boo. No, it was the entire crowd. When the Cowboys had their Monday night game,
against the
Cardinals, and Jerry Jones and the entire team decided to kneel before the national anthem, but then stand for the anthem, even then, you could hear the boos on TV. And think about this. If you're an NFL executive thinking, oh, God, we have these problems with these polling coming out, and then you're down there on the field, and you see players start to kneel, and you hear nothing but boos from your fans, you know, uh-oh, something's wrong here. And I'm going to go back to what I was talking about earlier with the Pittsburgh Steelers. When Alejandro Villanueva decided to be the only player to stand for it, people were burning their Ben Roethlisberger jerseys.
Yeah.
Now think about it. Think about if you're in his standpoint. You're a guy who is beloved by this city, and you decide to do something slightly controversial and stand with the rest of your team, and then you see your fans who have been your fans for years.
I mean, he's been playing there since like 2004.
Yeah.
So, these people have loved him for over a decade.
And you see them all of a sudden, boom, turn, and they are burning your jersey. That's why he made a statement later saying, I regret doing this. I shouldn't have done this. And the reason he said that was because they burned his jersey. He realized, crap, I did something wrong. And, going back to what we were saying just a second ago about how the NFL polls among people, okay? According to that poll, Major League Baseball is back to being America's favorite sport. The most watched sport, the most popular sport. Then the NBA, then the NFL, then the NHL. Okay? So, the NBA, as popular as it is, has never beaten football. But now it is. MLB, which was a sport that a lot of people a couple years ago saw on a decline, has come back to being America's favorite pastime. Which, that's the nickname for baseball, America's pastime. But, the polling shows it now. And it's all because of the fact that these NFL players decided to protest the national anthem.
And, it's not just limited to the Steelers. There's so many videos of guys burning jerseys because they're, the guys they used to support are kneeling for the anthem. And it's just how can you really cheer for this guy to do well if he's disrespecting the country? I mean, personally, I don't really care for these protests that much, but that's how a lot of fans are taking this. And, I mean, I can't really blame them for that.
And, that kind of goes back to, what it all was you have perception, okay? If you're a person who supports the reason why those players are protesting, then then anyone who's saying negative things about the protesting, you see that as, an attack on the First Amendment or attack on them. Or if they're a different race, you see it as a racist attack.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're, I guess I could say, on the right, and you see someone kneeling for the national anthem, whether or not, like I said, their protest is a legitimate protest, what they're protesting for is legitimate, you see that as disrespectful. You see it as disrespectful to the flag, disrespectful to the nation, disrespectful to members of the military, especially veterans, people who have died. It's all about perception. Okay, if you're on the left, you might say, yeah, what they're doing is it's a good, it's a just, it's a holy reason to protest. All those people on the right, they're just being racist because it's the black players who are doing it. Whereas if you're a person on the right, yeah, you're like, these people aren't, they're being disrespectful to my country. They're disrespecting our veterans. They're disrespecting those who have fallen. They're disrespecting first responders, our flag, our country. And you see this huge divide. So that's why I've been saying this entire time. It's not about the reason why they're protesting. I personally could care less. It's about the perception, and that is what's hurting the NFL. And you look like you were wanting to say something here?
Yeah, this also bleeds over into other aspects of sports, though. You can see a parallel with these protests with, the way ESPN has been covering these protests. Right. And they've gotten, very left-wing bias in how they present things. And, they bring on all these different commentators that are constantly supporting Colin Kaepernick and openly saying, people against, these protests are racist. And, what was that lady, Jamel Hill, said that Trump's
yes.
a white supremacist. It's just do you have any control over yourselves to just keep this at sports? Because when you start talking politics, people don't like this shit. People like sports because it's not politics.
Right.
People that like sports are oftentimes people that don't like politics at all, you know? So they look to sports as their last bastion away from this stuff, especially how volatile and divisive this last election was. That's being taken away from them, and they're just sick of it. And, you know, they don't want to put up with the entire environment of sports in general at that point.
Yeah, that's precisely right. And I'm glad that you mentioned about, you know, other sports and ESPN, because other sports, it's kind of started to bleed over to them as well. Not necessarily as much in baseball. There was one player from the Oakland Raiders, I'm sorry, not the Oakland Raiders, the Oakland Athletics, who kneeled during the anthem of one of their games that they were playing in Oakland. Now, notice the trend here that we're talking about. Golden State Warriors, San Francisco 49ers, Oakland Athletics. What do all of those teams have in common?
They're in California.
They're all San Francisco. Okay? That's where this stuff is. Where's Berkeley at?
It's in the
San Francisco area. Okay? That is where all this stuff is starting from. That is not a coincidence. Okay? That is not a coincidence at all. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the NBA, Commissioner Adam Silver, he actually went out and he said, remember players, you know, we got this NBA season coming up. It is a league rule that you have to stand for the national anthem. So he's cutting off this thing before, you know, he's putting out this fire before it even starts.
I forget who it was, but back in the 90s, there was once a person that protested in the NBA, and he got suspended for doing so.
Yeah.
They don't tolerate that in the NBA.
They don't tolerate that. That's precisely right. But something that existed that I didn't even know existed until this entire controversy started was the All-Women Lingerie Football League, the LFL.
I did know that was a thing.
I'm glad I found out that it was a thing. I'll tell you that. And, you know, these are girls who are essentially wearing just bikinis and shoulder pads playing football out there. And I didn't know this was a thing. But they even released a statement saying their players will be standing for the national anthem. So, you know, I don't know if we have a team in this area. I believe Houston might have a team or Dallas does. But I'm going to look up their schedule and see if I can get some tickets. Because if those ladies are going to support our country and show respect to the national anthem, I'm going to support them with my wallets as well.
Yeah, but, you know, it's interesting that you bring up another league. Because, like, we're seeing all leagues across sports at all levels have to, you know, come out with statements. Like NASCAR has said that,
right,
you know, everyone's going to stand during our, you know, events. And
well, NASCAR's about as Trump supporting as you can get in terms of the fan base there, so they weren't going to ever put up with that.
But also we're seeing these protests happening at, like, the high school level.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there was that, like, Pee-wee football team where the coach taught those kids to, like, kneel before the game.
Yeah, that was in Seattle.
Yeah, and they don't even really know what they're doing. But they're, you know, following in what their coach is telling them. And, you know, I'm not so bugged over these protests, but I do think that trying to influence young kids to be doing these protests is pretty indoctrinating. And I don't know, does it so, like, you know, kids are just so anti-nationalistic at a young level now that they're expressing themselves in these ways? I don't know. That's not a good trend for the future.
Precisely. You know, you're absolutely right on that. And, you know, I guess we're kind of getting towards the end of this podcast, but the thing about this entire protesting NFL controversy, ratings and everything is it all came boiling down to one moment, and that was earlier this week, when NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell released a letter to all 32 teams saying that he wants the players to stand for the national anthem. Now, that's after their ratings have just tanked. Players have been burning jerseys, ticket sales are super low, people aren't showing up to games, fans are booing, fans are burning jerseys, fans aren't watching the games, they're taking in less money in revenue. There have been some advertisers in local markets that have stopped running ads on the games. None of that is good news, okay? And if you are, think of it just from a business standpoint, whether or not you agree with their right to protest, whether or not you agree with the reason why they're protesting, you know that that's bad for business. And whether or not you support it, you know this can't go on or we're going to lose. And so Roger Goodell sent a letter out earlier this week on the 11th, which was actually yesterday morning, really, or it might have been 2 days ago, saying, I want everyone to stand for the national anthem. And that sealed the deal. But before you say what you're going to say, because I know you want to say something here, the real reason why I believe he did this, and that was, if you look at what Trump's tweet was the morning before, he said, if the players continue to protest the national anthem, maybe the NFL should lose their tax benefits. That, hitting them where they're, hitting them in their wallets, putting your money where your mouth is. Because remember, the NFL is classified as a non-profit, which I think is bullshit myself.
They make plenty of profits.
But that being said, that is how they're structured, okay? Tax benefits is the only reason they're able to make it. So if you know that you're bringing in $200 million less in revenue, and then all of a sudden the president's saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be getting those tax benefits if you're going to let this stuff continue to happen. Yeah, Roger Goodell that afternoon said, yeah, you're standing, all our players, I want them to stand for the national anthem. Goodell, ironically, bended the knee, and Trump won. So I know you wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, one thing I wanted to say was Jerry Jones already said that he's not going to let anyone play if they kneel. So, and I've been seeing a lot of people like the ACLU complained, like they're trying to violate their constitutional rights. Jerry Jones trying to do that. So we're having like this battle over the perception of their constitutional rights, even though you're not really protected to protest on the job. But, there was a new thing that came out today where Rashad Matthews, the wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, said that if you force him to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem, he's just going to quit.
Let him quit.
So, Goodell, maybe they're going to try and pass really have to stand, or, they'll try to do something. Okay, Rashad Matthews is already going to leave. Are other people going to leave?
I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
I think there might be like a solidarity movement to quit NFL.
And you know what? If the NFL dies, so be it as far as I'm concerned. Because you know what's going to happen? The NFL is never going to let itself die, okay? If a bunch of players are quitting, either they're going to do everything they can to bring them back, they're going to say, fine, be gone. Or they're just going to bring up players from, I guess I could use the word minor league teams, or they're going to let their backup players play. And I'm sure if you're a backup player who never really gets a chance to play, maybe in when your team's up by 20 or down by 20 in the final 2 minutes is the only time you ever go out in the field, knowing, oh, that guy just quit, this does benefit me, I might have more playing time. Whether or not I agree with his protesting or not, that's going to be running through their heads when they see a star player in their team walk out the door. Whether or not that's what they want to think that they're thinking about, that is going to be running through their heads, and that will impact their decision to leave as well.
I want to bring it back around for a second, to Trump or sports in the Trump era. I think one thing that we're seeing with sports, and that's being articulated through the NFL, and with the direction the country's been heading, sports fulfills like the bread and circuses aspect of life. Mm-hmm. We're starting to reach a point where things have been, devolving socially, and, even football isn't enough for you. Okay, the ultimate team sports is politics. So people are driving themselves away from sports and realizing that politics is more important, which is why what Trump has been doing with the NFL has been so good for him. Because there's so many people that are against Donald Trump that agree with what Donald Trump is saying. And, that in and of itself is a political victory for him. If you can be led to agree with Donald Trump on this issue, what's stopping you from agreeing with Donald Trump on another one now? Because at the moment, you're aligning yourself with Donald Trump over the football players you used to support last week. And that's changed overnight. No one expected this to happen, but that's just the reality that we live in, where politics permeates everything now.
And that's precisely it. And what's funny is, you remember, if we go back to that poll that we were looking at in terms of the partisan breakdown of that poll, yeah, it was a lot of Democrats. It was about 50-50 if you do the math there in terms of Trump is right or Trump is wrong. Whereas for Republicans, it was all like on Trump's side. So if you have a 50-50 split among Democrats even, that's not going good for you if you're, in the minority there. And so, yeah, it does all come down to that. It is about the perception. Do I support this? And you're absolutely right. It's drawing people that aren't political or wanted sports because it's not as political into a political realm.
And like I said, like politics is the biggest team sport game. Are the Democrats going to align themselves with what Donald Trump says or what Colin Kaepernick says? It's going to be Colin Kaepernick.
Yep.
That is a small number of people, about 20-25% of the nation that you're appealing to. Okay, you don't win politics by appealing to such a small demographic. You can appeal to your base, but you need to have appeal beyond your base. And, we talk about this all the time on the Sunday show. Mm-hmm. What is the Democrat platform? They're anti-America at this point, almost. Because all their politicians support these protests. Okay, they're aligning themselves in such a fashion. And it's not good for them. And they align themselves with so many negative things. They align themselves with lawlessness, illegal immigration, anti-patriotism. They're going to feel the effects of this. We can feel it in the air how these things are going, and it's not good.
And it's not going to get any better if they continue to do that. I mean, just look at, as we've said about like party registration numbers across the country in different states and all that, you're seeing that places that used to be blue strongholds, like the Rust Belt states, that type of area.
And let me finish
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Mainly working class people that were moderate, I guess I could use the word moderate Democrats, that, yeah, they're the ones who are like, I want to watch sports because it's not politics. Oh my God, politics is invading my sports. I voted for Trump. Wait a minute, Trump is right on this. The party that I used to be a part of is just being anti-everything that I currently stand for. And it seems like almost out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, those on our side have seen it as a steady decline. But to them, it's a huge wake-up call. I mean, like, these people don't represent me. They don't represent what I stand for. They don't represent the country that I love. Why should I support them? And that's going through the minds of millions and millions of Americans right now.
And, I'm someone from the Midwest. I'm from Wisconsin. And, I can kind of give good insight on why the Midwest went to Donald Trump. And, out in Wisconsin, the only thing that really matters to people is the Packers. Mm-hmm. That's all they have. It's like we have some other professional sports, but the only thing people care about is the Packers. If you go out on a Sunday into town to go shopping, no one's going to be there. When the Packers went to the Super Bowl in 2010, my hometown is about an hour from Green Bay, and they were holding parades and firing off fireworks. It's the only thing that matters to these people. But as these people are seeing their factory jobs left, because, predominantly where I'm from in central Wisconsin, people work blue-collar jobs.
Yeah.
And they're very patriotic people. They've always been Democrats the way I've grown up, but, in the working union sort of sense, not in the sort of SJW liberal sense. And now they're starting to see, football is turning away from what they used to believe in. The only direction they have to go is rightwards. And this is happening in Wisconsin, this is happening in Michigan, this is happening in Pennsylvania, this is happening in Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, and I won't be surprised if we start seeing, Minnesota in talks about going for Trump in 2020.
It's already looking like it, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a culture war, and the sports do matter because it's part of the, culture, and politics is downstream from culture. So, if the culture is being permeated backwards by politics, we need to use the culture for our political ends, which is why I said before, this is a good move on Donald Trump. He didn't plan to do this at all, but the feud is good for him.
Yeah, I like what you brought up there at the end, that he didn't plan this. Okay, that was just an off-the-cuff remark that he said at a speech to try to just get the people at the crowd to cheer. Yeah. Because he knew they were going to agree with what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And it was
enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic.
Not only agree, but people enthusiastically agree.
And that's the thing that, that I've said before is, if people didn't like what Trump was saying, you wouldn't see ratings down 10%. You wouldn't see the number one selling jersey as a guy who decided to do the right thing. You wouldn't see tickets decline. You wouldn't see players in the stands, even in bluest of the blue Massachusetts. You wouldn't see their players booing their own team. You wouldn't see any of that if Trump was wrong on this issue. But you are. And it comes back to the fact that the people who are mostly in support of the protesters in the NFL are a very small minority of the country. A very vocal minority, but a very strong or strongly worded vocal minority. Whereas the people who are the silent majority, this really is a silent majority speaking type of situation. There's no way that you can look at the data
the same with
and
the
not
statues.
come to that conclusion. Yes.
The numbers are almost the exact same. We see this all the time, but you go on Twitter and you don't think that.
No, because it's all an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have 27, if you have 25 to 33% of the country, I'll go even say 25 to 35% of the country that are going to want to remove the statues, but the rest of the people don't, or they're indifferent, they're not going to say anything about it. But if that 25 to 35% just continues to just all follow and retweet each other, it's going to make it look like their side is winning. And then if you go on there and you comment negatively saying, I don't think you should take down these statues, or I think the players should stand for the anthem, they're going to kill you.
These people have created their own false consciousness.
Yeah.
They have a perception of the world that isn't real, and when you try to point them out to that, they attack you because you are threatening them, because you are threatening what they think and perceive as the world.
And what I was saying earlier about if you look at like percentage-wise and stuff, it was about 50-50 among Democrats and almost all Republicans.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up Massachusetts again. I looked up the 2016 election data, okay? Trump only got 33% of Massachusetts, only 1/3. Hillary Clinton got 60 even, okay? If you take that 33% plus half of Hillary Clinton's, so half of Democrats, it's 30%, plus Trump's 33, you get 63% of people in that state support Trump on this issue.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a higher percentage than even voted for Hillary Clinton. Think about that. And that's in one of the most liberal states in the country. Booing their own players, the team that they hold in such high regard, the team that won the freaking championship several months ago.
Yeah.
They're turning around and booing them. And there's another cop car going outside.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, there's no way that you're someone who's going to side with the players on this issue and you're going to end up winning this argument. It's just not going to happen.
You mentioned, the majority of people in Massachusetts support Trump. You have to look at that half that half of the Democrats in that state that do. That's what we need to chip away at.
Right.
And that's what we already have shown that we can chip away at. And if we can continue to aim right there, we can control this country. And no one's going to be complaining about football. No one's going to be complaining about football because the country will be better.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of goes back to, what we were saying quite a while earlier about where do we see this going. I personally see the ratings will start to come back a little bit. Because a lot of the protesting, especially after Roger Goodell says, I want the players to stand, if that holds and the players do stand, then people's reason for not watching the games will start to slowly fade away. Now, when it comes to what we're talking about, the Super Bowl, I don't think you'll ever see a Super Bowl, no matter how unpopular the NFL is, I don't think you will ever see a Super Bowl with an empty seat. It'll get sold out, no matter what. And it'll still be very highly rated, because people are going to watch it. Now, that rating might be down from previous years. In fact, I think it will be if this situation continues. But in terms of, people going to the game, as much as I would like to see there be empty seats in protest, I don't see any way that's going to happen. So, yeah, the only thing it's going to come down to in terms of the Super Bowl itself is going to be ratings and people watching the game. I mean, as much as I don't like the fact that players are protesting the national anthem, I still watch games. I'm a huge sports fan. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only right-wing person anymore that still watches sports. But even then, I still watch football. I still watch basketball. I still watch baseball. Occasionally when hockey's on, I'll still watch it. I don't really watch soccer until the championship games. I still follow most sports very closely. And so, as a person, this really hurts me hard because I see all these people going back and forth. Oh, I'm going to protest. I'm going to stop watching the games. And it's like, I agree with you, but I'm still going to watch the games. So I actually am in the minority of my own party in terms of saying, am I going to watch less or am I going to watch more? I'm going to watch about the same as I always have.
See, it's kind of funny because for so many years I was, very anti-sports, but I'm coming around to watching sports again, and that kind of has to do with these Trump comments. Yeah, I have been enjoying watching football, but I get very excited to see what's going to happen during the national anthem now.
And there's actually is data that supports that as well, because if you look at the pregame shows have higher ratings than the games at some point.
Yeah.
And the reason is because people turn the game on, or they turn on the pregame show, they'll watch half an hour or so of that, they'll wait and see what happens in the national anthem, and then they turn it off. And so that ratings for the game doesn't transfer through the game. So the game ratings is down, but everyone tuned in beforehand, so that's why the ratings for the pregame show goes up. And there is data to support that, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, because, I couldn't care less to watch, the Bears play the Browns. But if someone protests before that game, people are going to talk about that.
Right.
They're going to talk about that more so than the results of that irrelevant game.
Yeah, imagine if you're some player who makes some, imagine you're the guy who returns the kickoffs. Imagine you get that and you return it for a touchdown. Okay, and imagine if that's a game-winning drive. Imagine that's with no time left and your team wins because of that. But all it took was 3 or 4 players from your team to kneel before the anthem. That's what they're going to talk about in the news.
Yeah.
Do you really want that to happen? No, of course you don't. Even if you agree with them, you don't want to see that. You want to see your own replay. You want to see your team plastered saying, glorious comeback victory. You don't want to say, 3 of these guys kneeled or the team kneeled.
But that plays into another aspect that I guess we could also go into. It's just there's a divide amongst the players with this.
Yeah.
What is it, Derek Carr with the Raiders? This came out his entire offensive line knelt during the national anthem, but he stood up.
Mm-hmm.
And, for the first series, I think they got a turnover, so he wasn't really on the field. But the first series that they were truly in, the offensive line, which they didn't allow a sack the year before
mm-hmm.
of Derek Carr. This is one of the best offensive lines in the league. They let 2 consecutive sacks go. He got pressured considerably more than he ever was. Statistically, it's anomaly what happened. And, it's reported that one of them said, this is what you get for kneeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're destroying the social cohesion of their own football team through this.
And a lot of people think the Raiders threw that game at the end, too.
And now, Derek Carr's injured now.
Mm-hmm.
So they threw that game, and now they're throwing away their season because there's animosity between their quarterback and the offensive line.
Yeah, and I was also going to mention that kind of goes to other things like Odell Beckham Jr., one of the players from the New York Giants. He's now out for the season with an injury. And a couple weeks ago when he scored a touchdown, he pretended to pee on Trump.
Yeah.
And that was a big controversy. And now he's out for the season. So it's like this Trump curse is hitting teams and players across the league. So
people that want to get, activists and political, they're seeing these strange repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just coincidences.
And you're right, they are coincidences. I do technically believe that there is a Trump curse because there's been a lot of people go against Trump that have had epic, out of the blue, nowhere failures. I've just, anomalies, as you said, that have happened. And that's happened ever since he started running back in 2015. The list is numerous, and all the stuff that normally wouldn't never happen, but it is. So I do believe there is some sort of Trump curse out there. There's no way that you can actually prove it, but it just seems very anecdotally that it exists, especially in sports world.
Yeah.
Because if you would have told someone, imagine this, if in 2015 you would have told someone, you said, in the next year and a half, you're going to see a team blow a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, and the other team's going to come back and win in overtime. You're going to see a team win 2 Stanley Cups in a row. You're going to see the Chicago Cubs win a World Series. And you're going to see a team in the NBA Finals blow a 3-1 lead. Nobody would have believed you. But that's what's happened. It's been the most almost abnormal sports world in decades. We've never seen weird stuff and political stuff come into sports the way that it has over the last couple of years.
But
and it's all because of Trump, and there's no way that you can deny that.
It's sports in the Trump era.
It is sports in the Trump era.
Is titled.
So, do you have anything else to say about this topic?
I have one more thing that I just wanted to bring up before we end this.
Okay.
And there's been these left-wing articles that have been written. One that comes to mind was from the Huffington Post that said white players that stand for the national anthem are supporting white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
No one agrees with you when you say these things.
Well,
okay, the people in their echo chambers on the left, they agree with that sentiment super hard. But if you're a white Democrat that supports what Donald Trump is saying with these football kneelers, you see an article like that, it's going to kind of make you think for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to say, wow, okay, I'm a liberal, but I just don't feel like I'm even welcome to be in this party anymore. I think that's where, the intersection of sports and politics and everything that's going on, if we can convince that person, that dude that's alienated, that's all we need to win these, elections going forward.
And thankfully for our side, that is exactly what is happening.
And there's plenty of guys like that
Mm-hmm.
out there in the world. A ton in this country.
A ton. Last thing, though, I guess I have to say is it's going to be interesting to see what happens here this week and the next couple of weeks now that Roger Goodell's, I guess you could say, letter of demands has reached players across the league. Will they stand? Will they sit? Who knows? We'll find out. If I can tell you one thing, if they continue to sit, the ratings are only going to keep going down. And the NFL knows that. And they're trying to reverse the damage as fast as they possibly can. Question is it something that even can be reversed at this point? Because there are a lot of people who are just going to stop watching the NFL altogether. And they will never watch it again. Which is unfortunate for the NFL, because a lot of those people who are fans their entire lives. So, they're trying to they're in damage control is what they're in. They're trying to fix the problem as fast as they can, and it's just not working. So as I said, it'll be interesting to see where this stuff ends up going. But other than that, I think we've pretty much said all that we can say about this topic.
Yeah, and we've just broken like an hour.
That's pretty good length for a midweek episode.
Let's call this a show. We'll be here as always on Sunday.
You'll be back in this seat. I'll be the secondary person.
I'm not in my normal seat. I'm not in front of the microphone that I'm normally using. Bobby's in charge of this episode. I was in charge of the last midweek episode with the Cat Lady Politics. Just talking about the future. Next week, we don't know what the midweek mini podcast will be, but the week after that, we are I'm like 90% sure we're going to have Texas Representative Jason Isaac on for an interview. So definitely stay tuned for that. That's going to be a really good episode. I know a lot of people are going to like it.
Yeah, we've been trying to get him on for about a few weeks now. Just weren't able to get stuff scheduled, but we're finally getting that scheduled. So we're going to have him on.
He's been really busy. He's in the middle of a re-election, cycle.
Yeah.
But he'll be coming on. There's also a number of other politicians we're going to be reaching out to. So stay tuned to see where that goes. We're going to be having some new guests on. We have a lot of new friends that are interested in coming on. So, the show's only going to be getting better. We're going to be coming out with, new and different entertainment. And, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I have to say is, again, if you want to get in contact with us, our email is trumprepublicradio@gmail.com. You can also find a link to that in the description below. And if you want to support the podcast, we have a PayPal link at, paypal.me/trumprepublicradio.
Yeah, which will also be in the description. And that will, go to help hosting fees and whatnot. We pay to do the show, so...
And, we're still also looking to try to get, T-shirts or hats made, so we can't do that without your help. So we'll be looking forward to doing that in the future. And I guess, other than that, I think we're pretty much done with this one, aren't we?
Yeah, we're good. We'll hear all again from y'all on Sunday. Have a good one.
Goodbye, everybody.